Hello, this is Todd Hubbs, agricultural economist from the University of Illinois. Today I'm talking about my weekly outlook from October 7, 2019. Corn and soybean export sales lagged last year. Before I get into detail on the weekly outlook, I'd like to invite everyone out there to a webinar this Thursday at 2 p.m. where Scott Irwin and myself will be discussing the implications from the September 1st stocks report and the October crop production report. We'll be looking at corn and soybean markets and how these reports will impact prices over the upcoming marketing year. So we've seen corn and soybean export sales get off to a slow pace this year. Corn in particular. Soybeans, we've seen some buying from China recently that is sort of buoying the market a bit. So I'm going to get into detail about what we're seeing in exports thus far this 2019-20 marketing year. This graphic showing corn total commitments through September 26 for the last two marketing years. It's important to remember total commitments are outstanding sales and accumulated exports through that date. As we can see this year, we're at about 382 million bushels, where we were at 775 million bushels last year. Now, last marketing year, corn exports got off to a torrid pace and looked like we were on pace to do a record kind of export number for the marketing year, only for U.S. export market share to collapse in the second half of the marketing year as abundant crops, particularly in South America and Ukraine, and competitive pricing saw U.S. export share fall through the last 6 months of the marketing year. What we ended up seeing is exports for the 2018-19 marketing year coming in at about 2.067 billion bushels. What's concerning so far this year is just the slow pace of export sales to Asia. While we see some to Japan there and South Korea, Asia overall is down substantially. I expect this to probably pick up once we get some clarity in the production level in the U.S., but we'll see how it goes. Right now, the USDA is projecting 2.05 billion bushels, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lowered that in the next WASDE report a little bit due to the slow takeoff. It's really going to come down to how much production we have in the U.S., because if it's a very short crop here, we tend to start rationing in the export market, and what kind of crop we see in South America, and in particular Argentina and the safrinha crop in Brazil. So any kind of short crop in those areas could see corn exports get boosted in the second half of the marketing year. But right now, we're off to a slower pace than last year, and that's being reflected in the numbers. This graphic is showing similar numbers to the corn graphic previously at soybean total commitments. As you can see, we're at about 525 million bushels through September 26th compared to 739 million bushels through last year. Now, we have seen quite a few more sales to China since September 26th, so this number will come up. And I expect to see China continue buying as we lead into the trade negotiations coming up here in the middle of October. The question is, will they get delivered? I think they will. But we're still sort of lagging last year's pace. It's hard to, separate this from the trade fight going on with China right now. In the 18-19 marketing year, it looks like exports total about 1.76 billion bushels. That was down around 370 million bushels from the previous marketing year. And exports to China looks like they fell about 540 million bushels. So the loss of the Chinese market sort of overwhelmed any kind of strength we saw in other markets as we picked up customers from Brazil as they exported a massive amount of soybeans to China throughout 2019, the later part of the year. Right now, it's looking sort of promising that we could be on pace to hit USDA's 1.775 billion bushel projection. It's really going to come down to the trade war, and if there's some kind of short temporary deal where ag exports are allowed, but we don't get any kind of fundamental change in the Chinese structural economy that the Trump administration has been pushing for. We'll see how it turns out. It's always important to remember the size of the South American crop will matter a lot. It'll be interesting to see what happens in 2020 if South America somehow shorts their soybean crop. We've seen dry conditions in parts of Brazil and Argentina, and soybean planting's off to a pretty slow pace. So that's something to pay attention to as we move through the marketing year. Right now, soybean export sales are lagging last year a little bit, but not too much. And I think as long as China's in there buying, we'll continue to see decent numbers. The October 10th crop production report is going to be a key for thinking about export potential this marketing year. If we see yield go down on corn and soybeans significantly, we could start seeing export numbers sort of come back a little bit, but it will help prices. I think the potential still there to meet USDA projections due to the uncertainty in the production potential here in the U.S. and South America and the uncertainty surrounding trade negotiations. So while both crops are off to a slightly slower start from last year, it's a little bit too early to write off exports completely. I'd like to thank you for your time. You can find my weekly outlook and daily analysis of issues related to Corn Belt farm economics at farmdocdaily.illinois.edu. I hope you can join us for the webinar on Thursday, and you can go to the FarmDoc website to sign up for that at 2 p.m. I look forward to seeing you around the state of Illinois.